So one of the things that students are often called upon to do is to create piano parts, which is a tricky thing to do if you're not a piano player. And this is a video showing some of the methods that you could consider using the note input arrange menu. So you'll notice there's explode and reduce. This first one I'm going to use is the reduce function. It reduces music on several staves onto a smaller number. So if I look at this here and I select all of it, yeah. So if I press I for instruments and add a piano part, and what I'm going to want to do is turn this three-part vocal into the right hand of the piano. So I'm effectively doubling the vocal parts in the right hand of the piano by selecting them all and copying them and selecting the first bar of the piano and just pressing reduce. You'll notice it still has the words on there, and I'll just pop into the home menu and filter out the lyrics and delete them with the delete key. And then you might think, okay, well, what is my bass line going to be? You could do it manually, but since I'm feeling a bit lazy, I might just pop into our old friend realize chord symbols and pop out a piano. I wouldn't choose this because it gives you chords in the left hand, which is a bad idea. So choose a whole piano part, and then you've got a few options here, as you would be aware. I'm just going to choose every chord symbol, but I could have chosen every beat, chords follow score rhythm, which would have given me a bass line with the same rhythm as the right hand. They're probably my best options, but I'm going to choose this one. And you'll notice it's popped in another part, yeah? And I could just simply take that bass line and pop it in. And obviously get rid of this whole fake line. And so within a couple of clicks, I've created a piano part which is going to match the chords, and it's going to double the vocal parts and sound, you know, reasonably okay. That would be possibly draft worthy, but you might want to make a few adjustments, like dropping this down the octave perhaps, so you can get this step down little idea. Obviously, if you're a little bit more advanced, you'd realize that you don't always have to have a root bass line, and perhaps here at this position here, since there's two G chords in a row, the third would have been the better choice. Maybe the G, you know, was the best idea, and perhaps I could have done one of my other choices here or here. And this is the point at where you're just simply playing around. That was probably the best choice out of the ones I've made. And then beyond that, you might make other choices. Like you might think, well, I don't want to double them directly. I want to put it down the octave so that the singers are singing higher than the piano part. I won't play it all, but you'll get the... Or you might think the opposite. Perhaps it'd be nicer up the octave to provide contrast. So once you've done these earlier forms of simple accompaniment, you could find a method of personalizing them a little bit more to your context. The other alternative concept, so this was quite an easy one to do because, as you could see, all the parts have the same rhythm and they're not crossing. And you'll notice if I highlight this, all the notes are coming up as blue in the keypad. So let's go to a different example. So here's another example where, as you can see, the individual parts are very much different from each other rhythmically, and occasionally notes in one part are higher than the other. So this is going to be trickier to turn into a piano part, but not impossible. So I'll add a piano in, and I'll just do what I did before and see what happens. Yeah? So I'm copying it, I'm going into the note input, and I'm going to reduce it onto the right hand of the piano. And remember also, I'm just going to filter out the lyrics and delete them. Okay, so you notice that you get something that looks horribly complicated, isn't that right? This is the sort of writing that's more difficult to automatically turn into a piano part, but not impossible. There's a number of concepts here that are probably worth looking at. Can you notice how some of those notes are green and the stems go down and others are blue and the stems go up? And in this bar there's green, yellow and blue. So that's parts 1, 2 and 3 on the keypad. 2 is green, 3 is yellow. Alternatively, I could have just put 2 of the lines on one part and the other line on the other part. So let's try that as an example. So I'll simply copy this part and this part and reduce them. That's a little bit more playable, isn't it? And I still will need to filter out the lyrics and delete them. And I might just give the alto part to my left hand. And obviously that's a bit too high, so perhaps move it down the octave, and I'm still going to need to filter out the lyrics. So that's probably a little bit more playable for a pianist. You might want to add in some extra. Perhaps, move these ones that aren't matching so they're not as clashy. The other alternative is the option of using Sibelius Ideas to create a piano part that would work for your piece, which is the subject of another video called Customizing Sibelius Ideas. The next concept is when you want to turn an existing piano part into a part for other instruments. So there's a range of ways of doing that. I'm using a Sibelius idea here as my example, but I'm mainly just focusing on the rhythm and the part writing at the minute. So let's pretend I want to arrange this for 3-part vocal. So I'm going to add in soprano 1, soprano 2 and alto. Yeah. Okay, so I could have a look at this part and you'll notice that most of the time, not all the time, there's an example there, most of the time, and there's one there are 3 parts. So I could just double click that and copy it, and then I could click here, hold down Shift and click here, and use the Note Inputs Explode menu. And you'll notice that Sibelius makes an effort to spread the notes out into a playable set of selections. And at this point you have to make some decisions of your own. So for example, here you might decide you don't want the soprano ones to divisi their line, to divide into 2 parts, or you do. You could conceivably just lose one of the notes and simplify the part a little bit. The other thought you might have is whether or not the part's going a little bit high for the voice. So you can notice here this E flat is in red because it's a little bit too high for the altos. So instead of having it so high, you could just move it down an octave and have it just repeat at the same octave. That might be a good idea. And these little grace notes, for example, might not be quite suitable for singers as well as they might be for piano. So it's sort of perhaps you might think, oh, I'll get rid of those. So let's just listen to what we've got so far. We've still got the original piano part. You can just put your words on them. Holy, holy, holy Lord. Yeah? Now, obviously, it's still a Sibelius idea. We're mainly trying to steal the rhythms, yeah? So I might just decide that I know what chords I want to put on the part. So you might think, okay, those are the notes I want. I don't want all these fancy other ones that the piece has already got. Because Miss Townsley will know that I didn't understand that level of harmony, and it'll be obvious that I'm just plagiarizing. So what I could do then is watch the Customizing Sibelius Ideas video and turn the parts into the chords that would match what I've chosen, you know, so C major 7, C, G, B, yeah, so E natural, G and C, or maybe B, and put a C in the bass, maybe a B in the bass, because as we know that's part of the chord. I'm trying to go down under B, E, C maybe, something like that. And I'd have to keep on doing it, and then I'd have to change all of these to match, wouldn't I? Yeah, so it probably would have been better to customize the idea prior to exploding it into the vocal parts. So there's an idea for coming up with some more interesting rhythms and accompaniment patterns, whether you've already got your 3-part vocal done or whether you're starting from scratch.